set. Good evening. My name is Daniel MacDonald. I'm the chairman of the Government Advisory Committee. Today is Wednesday, January the 23rd. For those of you that don't know who we are or what we're all about, I'll just take a brief moment to read the committee's charge, the purpose of why we're here. This committee is to concentrate on whether the membership of the Board of Selectmen should be increased from 3 to 5 members, review the current organization, status of Groveland's town government, and report back to the Board of Selectmen with the committee's findings at completion of their work. We're here today. At the last meeting, we decided to invite the Board of Selectmen to attend this meeting. Mr. Dark is here from the Groveland Board of Selectmen. Mrs. Gorski is tentatively on her way. Donald Green could not make it, however, previously we had sent inquiries to him in written form, and he responded, and the committee has his responses to those questions. I have an agenda before the committee today. Called the meeting to order. Next on the agenda, I'd like Kathy to present the minutes of the last meetings.
Okay, well, everybody has minutes. The 29th are new, and the 8th, just for your information, we already did actually approve them with these changes, unless you see something from the 8th that I missed. But the 29th are up here for the approval. If you want to make a motion.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Next on the agenda, we'd like to welcome William Dark and ask him some questions. I would like to ask him the same questions that I presented to the other two members of the Board of Selectmen, and have him answer for the committee and the public, and we can certainly follow up with other questions after that. If anyone has objections to that.
The whole crew is here now.
All right.
Okay.
Can I just ask a clarification? Do you want
Sure.
me to try and track all of his responses in our minutes, or?
Just if you could,
It's a lot,
if you
right?
could summarize them, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, I'll summarize on here and let him see it, and then I'll attach it to the minutes. Is that okay with you?
That is-
Okay, is that all right with you, Bill? I'm gonna just kind
Yeah, that's fine,
of
yeah.
bullet what you say, and then I'll pass it down to you at the end of the paragraph.
Wait a
And I'll
minute.
just attach
Betty,
it
to bring you up
rather
to
than-
speed, we just accepted the minutes, and we were just beginning to address Mr. Dark.
I'm sorry, I wasn't gonna come out, but. I thought
glad
I
you
should
made it.
try.
I heard you should stay far away from us.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
all right, let's do this.
am I ready to go?
Go.
This is what I sent out. This was my lead-in sentence. In the interest of gathering useful information to be used by the Government Advisory Committee, please answer the following questions. My first question was, in the year 2010, the voters of Groveland voted down a non-binding referendum that called for a five-member board. For what reason is this issue to be studied and presented to the voters again? Do you have an opinion on it?
Sure, I always have an opinion on stuff. Just as far as going back to 2010 when it was presented, I think that was more politics than anything. There was, I mean, anyone who follows town government, there's always, even though our town I think is very well run and we are in good shape, there's always issues that arise between different groups and different boards, and the Board of Selectmen over the last number of years has had some issues with the planning board where we haven't seen eye to eye on things, and that vote came about because of that. It's actually sponsored by the planning board chairman, and put it forward. It hadn't been studied at all. It was just one of these things, you know, to throw out there. And I think the townspeople did the right thing at the time, voted it down, because there had been no group like this that had looked at it, and it was just one of those things, one of those in-town fights, I think, that was going on. So, the townspeople, like I said, rightfully voted it down. I know the time I was against it, it didn't seem to make any sense. In the last couple of years for me, I'm speaking to me personally now, the reason why you guys should be here doing this job is that I think things have changed. I think that I've been doing this job for a long time now. I first got elected in 1994. I served for 6 years, did not run, then ran again the next year, and I've been on for 12 years. So 18 out of the last 19 years I've served on the Board of Selectmen. And it just, the last few years have been different, okay? I think that, and I don't know if it's a sign of the times, you know, the economy, if that has it weighs on the way people act, but people, I don't believe, are as nice as they used to be, okay? I see a lot of stuff happening that I don't like. I see the way that some people are behaving that I don't like. I don't think people I don't know, it's not good. So how does that affect Board of Selectmen going from 3 to 5?
Right.
Why does that matter?
Yeah.
Are we on to
When
question
there's,
two?
when there's 3 people on the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, back up. So how is that different than before? Is that the climate's changed?
Sure,
Is
yeah,
that-
it wasn't like that. I mean, I think you could talk to people and you could work things out, and now it's, I think there's just a lot of nastiness. So, and how that relates to the Board of Selectmen as far as being 3 members. Now, I believe we're posted for tonight because I was gonna be here. I mean, but Betty and I,
Let's
if
hope
we're
so,
not,
Bill, because we'll know
He's
about
here.
it.
yeah, and Don's here.
Was it posted? Don just came in.
Yes, you're posted.
Yeah, so, since there's only 3 on the Board of Selectmen, 2 members constitute a quorum. So if Betty and I happen to see each other and decide to talk about something, technically, I mean, if you're talking about town business, you're not supposed to.
Right.
But, you know, somebody could see us, you could pass, and they could say, oh, well, they were doing whatever, and then, as we've found out all too well over the last year or so, people like to file ethics commissions complaints, and it's serious business. I mean, we spent time down there, all of us went down there, had to testify, raise your, which hand is it you raise when you're?
Right, depends on.
So back to
how you-
two.
you're gonna tell the truth.
And you had to, I know we all have to give up time. I do go down on a Friday, give up half my day to go down there and testify to certain events that had happened. And I think it was just, I don't, the stuff that had happened, I don't think there should have been a complaint filed. I think there were, you know, we've always tried to do our job, and I know I've always tried to do my job the proper way. So that led me to start thinking that if there's 5 of us, obviously the quorum requirement is now 3. So if there's 2 of us that happen to see, you know, if I happen to run to Betty, I'm not violating the open meeting law. To me, it's as simple as that. I don't think you need 5 decision makers. I still don't think you need 5 decision makers. I've never bought into the fact that, you know, you need a diverse group of people, that, you know, only 3 of us don't represent the population. I don't think that. I think that if you have people that are, I said my criteria for the Board of Selectmen, reasonably intelligent, open-minded, not, you know, unafraid to make decisions. If you have those 3 criteria, I think you can be a good selectman. I don't think you need 5 people. I actually would dread the idea of serving on a 5-person Board of Selectmen personally, because I think it would be way too much talking. I always say there's too many of us already, but that's the point, you know, that for me, it's as simple as the quorum and that requirement, because I just think it's gonna be worse going forward. If you have to be so afraid of you know, bumping into people saying something that you're gonna be, and it's serious business, you get fined big money by the Ethics Commission. If you have to be afraid of that, I don't know why anyone would want to do this job. I mean, it's already a thankless job, you know, a lot of times, unless you know, other than the personal satisfaction you get from trying to do a job well, but I don't see why anyone would want to do it with the risk that they have. You know, when I was down there, I talked to somebody, a lawyer said to me, he said, you're a professional, you're a dentist, right? I said, yeah. He said, well, you need to be concerned about your dental license. I said, what do you mean? And I said, how does one have it? And I never thought anything of it, and I still don't think anything would come of it, and nothing happened to me. But here I'm thinking, you know, I've been doing my job for all these years, trying to do a good job, and then got my little side gig here with the town, trying to do a good job on behalf of the town, and I could potentially be putting myself at risk. I mean, why would anyone want to do anything like that? It doesn't make any sense.
So the ethics risks have changed since
Sure.
2010 to
Yeah.
the present, so
Yeah.
in reaction to that, the way to,
The fines that they're levying against people,
so in defense
Could-
against that and for the people on the board.
right, could bankrupt you,
Mhm.
you know, and
Okay.
for
So,
trying to do your job.
So, my second question was, do you recommend an increase? I think you
Yeah,
answered
I
that
wrote that
question.
down.
Is that an affirmative yes?
Yeah, although honestly.
With qualifications?
Sure, I don't know if the townspeople will vote for it, because our town is very conservative, doesn't like a lot of change, so realistically, I don't know if it's gonna happen, even if everybody comes out in favor, people might say, although they should, because, part of the problem in we wanted to change some of the positions from elected to appointed over the years, and it comes up, I don't remember the gentleman who called us the Kabbalah one year, whatever that was,
We thank that for that.
Yeah.
I'm not writing that.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, don't put that in the minutes.
that, you could get power too few hands and ruling the town,
Crazy.
So, but I think that actually goes along with people would be more willing to make it 5 people, because then they say, well, you couldn't control things with just 2 people, so that they might be more willing to have some of these other positions appointed instead of elected.
Okay. Let's see, so that's it's just the first prong, I guess, of the charge. The second part of our charge seems to be much broader in nature, and we'll review the structural organization of the town. And I'm not quite sure what the parameters are. We could look at the macro side of it and the department heads and the departments themselves, or we could certainly scrutinize every little detail of the organization. In your opinion, what structural changes to the town government would you recommend, if any?
Well, when we're...
And to what degree do you
Yeah.
believe we should scrutinize such changes?
Yeah, and I think I threw this part out about it when we were talking about this. First off, if you do go from 3 to 5, what does that mean? Again, is it just 5 people making the same decisions that 3 people make? Or is it a 5-member board of selectmen serving as, and I know Greg, our finance director, has said this, thrown it out to us way back when, not that we should do it, but just that there's different ways of doing things. Should a 5-member board of selectmen have other duties? Should it be the Board of Health? Should it be the zoning board of appeals? And so that's something I think it makes sense to look at. I don't know what other towns do, if they just do go from 3 to 5, and again, it's a 5-headed decision-making monster instead of a 3-headed decision-making monster, or if they actually do other.
With
other
all your
duties.
years of service, do you have an opinion on that you could
You know what,
help us with? Or?
for me personally, I've never liked to micromanage things. I've always thought that my job was to come in and make decisions that were relevant to us. I've never thought that I should, and I got into trouble about this a couple of summers ago from a member of our fire department, when I said to him, I said, well, I don't know exactly what you do. And he said, how long have you been on the Board of Selectmen? And I said, well, whatever it was, 17, 18 years.
Mhm.
I actually thought he was giving me a compliment when he asked the question. Silly me, again. And he said, well, you should know what we do. Why don't you know at this point? And my position was, because I'm not over there looking over your shoulder every second of the day. I don't know what everybody does every minute of the day. That's not what my job is. I've never looked at it that way. I come to my meetings. I think you meet as a board, you make your decisions. I'm not here trying to impose my will on people. I've never been that way. So, yeah,
Okay. Following question, your opinion, does the current form of town government function effectively and efficiently in its duties?
well, it's town government, so.
Does it do its job?
It's never as efficient, I believe, or as effective as, you can do in the private sector, because you can't just, like in my office, I can make a decision and it happens right away, but here you have to go through things. But I think as far as, as far as town government goes, I think that our town operates pretty well. And obviously, a lot of that has to do with the people who are serving on the different boards. If you've got people that can't make decisions or that like to fight, then no, things don't happen. Well, if you have good people, it always comes down to the people. If you've got good people, then yeah. So I have, one of my frustrations being on the Board of Selectmen is people will complain about certain things in town government, and when we give them the answer, well, they're elected, we can't really do anything about that. We can bring people in, we can talk to them. That's why we've talked about making some positions appointed, some things that made sense, have your kind of your chain of command and things like that. But, so yeah, so again, going back, I still think some more positions should be appointed, a couple of them, I think that, sometimes you don't have control of people. The electorate is the ultimate decision maker, and people can say that, well, if somebody doesn't like the job you're doing, that you'll get unelected. But, for example, if you've got a lousy member on the planning board, it could take 5 years to unelect them unless they do something illegal. So, I mean, if you could appoint people to
So
positions.
in the meantime,
it
you're
makes
stuck
sense.
with it.
Sure, you know?
That's the problem.
All right.
We kind of covered 5 as well.
Yeah, 5, you may have covered some of the ground. You believe the powers of the Board of Selectmen should be changed, should it be expanded?
Yeah, again, I don't know, I'm not, I think that if you're, again, to me, you know, at least in our town, Board of Selectmen is the town manager. Now, we are able to have some other people help us, like our administrative assistant Nancy Lewandowski and our finance director Greg Lebrecht do a lot of the duties essentially that a town manager do. So because the Board of Selectmen is part-time, we're here just, you know, certain times, not on a 8-hour daily basis. You need somebody to help run things, and even though they don't have that title, and sometimes maybe people think certain people overstep their boundaries, but that's the way that we're set up. If we need something to be done, we have either, you know, somehow between the two of them working with us, that's how we get things done. So I don't think, again, necessarily, I would be curious to see what you guys come up with. I'm open on as to whether there should be more power or not. Again, it's if it makes sense, if it makes things more efficient, more streamlined, then yeah, I think it makes more sense. But I don't have a definitive answer whether it needs to be more powerful.
Okay. Following question, number 6, was do you believe there is a need for a town administrator to supervise the heads of departments, all commissions, boards, offices?
Yeah, and you know, that goes to what I
employees of the
just,
town?
kind of like what I was just saying. I'm not a huge fan of adding layers of bureaucracy. You know, I think that, again, in our town, we're still not super big, and we've got the right people in place. I think we have some people who care about the jobs that they're doing, and again, our finance director does a lot of things that probably wouldn't technically come under a finance director's job description, but he happens to live in town and has a vested interest in the town and likes doing things, and you know, so again, I think if you got the right people, you don't have to add that layer. Again, I like the fact that the people who run the town live in town. You know, if you hired an outside administrator to come in, my wife's uncle has served as city managers in lots of different cities across the country, and every time I read about him, it's just a big mess that he's in, and all the bad stuff that's going on. And you don't, you know, for me personally, and even, it's so funny, the 3 people on the Board of Selectmen right now are all born and raised in Groveland. You don't certainly have to have been born here and gone to Pentucket and lived here your whole life to care about the town. But I think if you live in the town, you care, and you're hopefully you're making decisions that you think benefit the town. I know that an outside administrator probably would feel the same thing, but I don't think you have the connection. I don't think you do. So to necessarily, you know, to hire somebody just to come in and to be your town administrator, I don't think makes any sense right now in our town. Again, you know, our finance director happens to be from Groveland, but that wasn't a requirement. He just happened to live here when we, at the time, we were hiring someone. The first, we had 2 finance directors before Greg. Where's Greg? Did we have 2 before you, or 3?
3, well, that old guy.
Mr. Moses, Mr. O'Connor.
I think it was just those 2.
I think it was just Mr. Moses, Mr. O'Connor.
Yeah, and neither of them were.
Hopefully he's not watching.
It's really old.
I hear what you say on, and I'm in agreement with you on not adding layers of bureaucracy, but do you believe there's a void or a need for a go-to central person that can answer questions for the employees within town hall? What I've heard is that there isn't that central hub to the wheel and the spokes. Is there somebody that,
Well,
could a position be redefined or somehow?
Probably, and again, I think that unofficially, we have 2 people who handle that job, and anybody's always free to come and speak to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, if somebody really has a question needs to be answered, they can certainly come talk to us. I mean, we'll talk to anybody, anytime. You know, I mean, even if you're not on our agenda, we'll talk to you. I mean, we've always been like that. So, again, we have some positions that are elected and some that are appointed. So, you know, if everybody was appointed, sure, then we had that chain of command. We could say you're in charge of all these people, and then you report to us. But until that happens, I mean, even if you did have that other layer, it would only be for a few people. It wouldn't be for everybody.
What else here? 7, which town positions, in your opinion, should be appointed and which should be elected?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've been harping on
Some
here
ideas?
all along. Yeah, I mean, the ones that we've tried to change in the past, the number one is road commissioner, or what did Tickford's called?
King of the road.
King of the road, yes, that was pretty good. Our king of the road, I believe, should be appointed. Again, we happen to have a good one right now in Bob Barricalian, who lives in town and gets elected. He's in his last term. I mean, I've said it a number of times jokingly that I'm gonna run and get elected because, you know, I think we should have somebody who's appointed. I mean, I think I'd actually do a good job. I would put it on the job, but, you know, I'm a dentist, not a road person, but somebody like me could run. If I got enough people to vote for me, I'd be the road commissioner.
You can fill cavities, you can
I
fill
can
potholes.
fill holes all day long,
Exactly, yeah.
you know?
You can
Different material.
transferable skills.
That's it, you know?
So there's no need for that to be elected, in your opinion?
It should be, yeah, it should change.
It should be appointed.
Should be appointed, you know, it really should. That's probably the number one. After that, I mean, what are the other positions?
Cemetery, library?
How about town clerk?
yeah, I mean, I think that probably makes sense
Not that
too.
she doesn't do a good
No,
job.
I know. I mean, I think that's, you know, of you look at kind of the big ones in town, I mean, and the ones that still aren't are the road commissioner and town clerk and,
Assessor's office?
I mean,
Well,
we had a treasurer here about 15, 18 years ago. Must have been a popular person. She got elected and she wouldn't even keep a check register.
yeah,
I mean, that's,
It's okay.
yeah. No, I know. You can get some, you know, nowadays you hope that wouldn't happen because the information is easily gotten out there, but I mean, it could, you know,
Could.
it certainly
she
could.
didn't have the benefit of a finance director to kind of guide her.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Today that's good, it's called paperless.
So, a certain road king.
yeah. King of the road and
Harley.
maybe,
Better than
maybe
roadside.
town clerk. You know, I mean, other than that, the only other boards we have, who else is elected? We have the Board of Health is elected, the Planning Board is elected,
The library trustees.
Library trustees.
Elected.
Yeah, I mean,
Board of Assessors.
Board of Assessors.
Water and sewer commissioners,
Water and sewer commissioners, yeah, I
light
don't know.
commissioners,
Electric
light commissioners.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't have as big a problem with those, to me, it's more the ones that are on a daily basis, you know.
excellent question.
Would that being elected or appointed affect their, how does that affect their delivery of services, I guess, you know? Is it an accountability issue, or is it?
Well, you know, again, I think that they're more accountable if they're appointed, hopefully, because there is that chain of command. If somebody's got an issue with somebody that's appointed, they can come talk to us, but if they're elected, you know, we can try to get the people in and talk to them about it, but, you know, it's, you know, again, ultimately, the townspeople decide whether they should elect them after the 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is.
I got 2 more questions, and I'm gonna open up the floor, not that I'm not trying to monopolize things there. I just wanted to follow the same line of questioning that I was presented to Mrs. Gorski as well as Donald Green previously, so just to be consistent in treatment here. 8th question is a real simple one. Do you believe in term limits on the positions? Because certainly you've been touted, you were born and raised here.
Yeah.
So for newbies to be,
Probably
to
six
come to
terms.
town late, you know, I didn't get off the Mayflower
Yeah.
at the bridge, so, you know, what do you feel about term limits?
You know what, on the local level, I don't know, I don't think you need them. Even on like on a national level, people have so much money that they sometimes seem to stay in power.
It's tough to beat the incumbent.
Yeah, it is. I think they're, you know, I've been elected 6 times. 2 times I ran against people, 4 times I was unopposed. You know, I mean, and the 2 times I ran was because I ran against an incumbent. Nobody ever has run against me since I've been in office. Either they just think, why would I do this job? Or they think maybe I'm doing a good job. So I think that if I had screwed up enough over the years, somebody would run against me, and I probably would have been unelected, you know. I can say that because, I mean, my term is up in May, and I'm intending not to run again now, at least now. And you know, I'm not the one to blow my own horn, but I've done a good job with Town of Groveland over 18 years. I really have. From the time that I first started, I mean, especially financially, we had 0 money. We used to joke, and this is before Greg was our finance director, when we got through our special town meeting in the fall, we had like, I think we had, Tom, you would remember probably, I mean, we had like $40 in in whatever, and we said we can get a couple of pieces of a six-pack, and then we're good until next July 1, you know? We need to be able to make it until then. I mean, things have turned around a lot. We have, I mean, Greg can tell us, I mean, he doesn't like to say it, I mean, we got a lot of cash in this town nowadays, and, you know, I mean, we don't like to let that secret out, and over the downturn over the last few years, we haven't had to lay off people. The services are there. Our fields are probably the best around. Our roads keep getting fixed, and I know when it snows, when I drive the Groveland roads, and then I hit Haverhill, I know when I'm in Haverhill, we have trash pickup that's free. I was on the when I used to go to those meetings, Greg, the Regional Finance Advisory Committee, and they were giving us a hard time when I was saying how cheap Groveland is, and I said, well, we're cheap. And I said, well, do we have trash pickup? We do. What about you, Merrimack? No, they don't have trash pickup. It's, you know, you have to pay or you have someone come get you. We have 2 shifts of police officers, right? 2 on all the time, and at least at the time, I know West Newbury was calling us on a late shift when they need backup, you know. And here we are, we're the cheap ones, but we seem to do everything in this town. So, I mean, I'm not gonna, this isn't about me. I just, again, I think that if it ever got to the point that I wasn't doing the job properly, I would have heard it and I would have been on.
As long as you're doing the job,
I think so.
let the voters decide.
Let the voters decide.
No term limits. And then the ninth question, the last one I had.
This is his
The
question.
ninth question, I had it, well, I presented it to all the board of selectmen, so. And I see this as a structural issue, because I've been in town about 7 years, and it seems frequently overrides come up. I see it as a structural problem. I wanted your opinion. Could you think of any changes in town government that would result in a balanced budget, not requiring voter tax overrides?
Sure. I mean, you talk about structural, though, our only budget problem is the school budget. I mean, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that when you hit Prop 2.5, you operate under that, and realistically, when the town was, I mean, we've said that the budget can go up, what, about 3%, Greg, maybe, and we can afford it, somewhere around there?
School budget?
School budget,
Between the two of them, yes.
yeah, you know, right, that does, yeah, Whittier and all those.
Could each of the towns within that regional district agree to 2.5?
Well, it's not the towns, the problem is, you talk about structural, it's the teacher's contract. I mean, it's a union, and there's built-in steps and columns, and there's
I'm a member of the.
cost of living adjustments, so a 3% raise isn't a 3% raise, because, again, Greg, what's the steps and columns each year? Is that about
Steps and columns are worth about 3 in an aggregate.
3%?
So they're already over the
Right.
2.5.
So-
The health insurance is worth about another 2.5.
So, I mean, I know people like to hear that, and it's going against the kids and all this stuff I've heard over the years. That's the structural deficit. Until that gets solved, but we live in Massachusetts, and it's not gonna happen. I mean, you know, the unions are very strong, and we talked, several years ago, was it Driscoll who was the Secretary of Education? Was that his name? And he sort of got himself in hot water, because he said that all the money from ed reform went to just increasing teachers' pay. And I know, again, this makes me sound awful, and it makes it sound like I don't believe in education, which obviously I do. I mean, my kids have all gone to Pentucket, I went there, but all it did was compensate the people who are doing the job more than they were before. It didn't increase services, it didn't increase anything. So until a contract can be negotiated that says your pay will go up 3% every year, you guys knock yourself out, give it to whoever you want within your union, some more, some less. Until that can happen every single year, we're going to be fighting the same battle. So it's not the town side. I keep asking Greg, what is our percentage that goes to the school now versus?
63. The numbers that came out today will blow that out of the water.
Yeah. So, and it used to be, it wasn't that long ago, it was 50-50.
We were 49 6 years ago, now we're
Yeah.
63.
So, you know,
So the structural problem is the union.
you could cut I'm not saying union, I'm just talking about the way that the compensation is. Every year you can lay off teachers, but the amount that's spent on salary is still gonna be the same. Eventually you could cut services. You could cut every single town service, and then you still wouldn't be able to afford the school budget, because it keeps going up, more than people would pay for it. So, you know, I don't know. Obviously, that's one thing I've never been able to get accomplished. I mean, it's tough. It's, you know, we've talked about it. We've talked about it with a handful of superintendents over the years, and, you know, I mean, until that can happen, I don't know. It's going to be the same thing. We're always going to be short. It's always going to be the same fights. It's always going to be, the theater students down there, don't cut the theater and the arts, you know, and the parents saying, well, don't you care about education? And of course, everybody does, but unfortunately, that's it. That's the, what do they call the elephant in the room? What is it? You know, that's it.
Okay.
That might be too simple, but I don't know.
Thank you for answering my questions. I'll open it up to the rest of the committee. Yeah.
Bill, you've been in town a lot longer than I, and it seems to me that the surrounding communities that have boards of selectmen have expanded to 5, and one of the issues I heard was that it opens up for more debate, and it also prevents, as opposed to a board of 3, when you have a board of 5, you never get this 2 against 1. And I don't think that's happened here a lot. It
No.
may have happened. My concern, I have 2 concerns, and one goes to the issue of, you said you ran unopposed for 4 terms, which may have been, you know, a deference to your prowess as a selectman. But we don't seem to have a community that we're still trying to fill boards.
You're right, yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be a lot of political involvement. So if we expand to 5, what kind of candidates are we going to get?
I agree. I mean, that's a real concern. I was thinking about that when I was driving over here, and I know this is, I'm gonna come off sounding like this idiot here, but you need the right people to do the job.
Mhm.
And the reason we don't have two against 1 all the time is because as long as I've been on the board, and not just because of me, but we've always had good people on the board
Mhm.
that would look at each issue on its own merit. It wasn't, well, Betty and I always vote the same, or Don and I always vote the same. We, for the most part, because we would, you know, talk about being more debate with 5, I think with 3, there's plenty of debate. We would try to get to the point where we could see each other's position, and that's why I think that most of the time we'd end up with 3-0 votes, because you get to the point where the answer was clear, it was obvious. But it's not rocket science, you know. And if you take the politics out of it, if you're really looking at what makes the most sense for the town of Groveland, the answer usually is pretty clear to 3 people. So now, again, I don't think you need 5 decision makers. I really don't. And I do get concerned that you can, because I've come across some people that have come to our meetings that have talked about running over the years, and I would be really afraid if some of those people were sitting where we are right now. I mean, but that's the risk you run, you know, and especially if things stay like they are again, you know. I don't want it to sound like woe is me, but you know, you have to really care a lot to put yourself out on the line, because you really, in that seat over there, you really can't defend yourself. People can say what they want to say, and because you're a public servant, I mean, you can just have to kind of take it. They make up stuff, they say stuff, and it's, you know.
I think Harry Truman had a word for it,
What was that, John?
about getting out of the kitchen.
To what?
Yeah.
Can't stand the heat.
So why, you know, why would, and I've had people ask me, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? You know, you do this, you do that, you know, and it takes time from other stuff, you know. But again, so am I the only person? Is Betty the only person? Don the only person? No. But I think your point is well taken, that if you have more people, you have a greater likelihood that you're going to end up with somebody who's maybe not.
But your point was that you felt that because there's only 3 of you, if you run into each other in the grocery store, and other than saying hello, you're afraid to talk about anything because somebody will complain to the Ethics Commission, and
Even if it's without merit, there are exceptions for social situations.
There are, but you know what? With my experience with the Ethics Commission, it's like, you don't even get to face your accusers. You go down
exactly,
there.
it's a private complaint,
Yeah.
nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
It's almost Gestapo.
And there's a standard of
John,
appearances
that's
also.
exactly what it is, because you don't have a chance to defend yourself in front of.
Second question, I'm going to be brief, is we've had discussions here about town manager, town administrator. Some of the feedback we've gotten in our own discussions from talking to citizens, that if you don't have a head here, and a town manager, town administrator can do a lot of good coordinating departments. If you have elected officials, if you have a town manager and elected officials, you'll have a government that will, you know, who's appointed, you know, saying, okay, I'll do what you say. We have elected officials say, well, you're town manager, but I answer to the people. So if we were to recommend a town manager, and let's say the public bought into it, would you be in favor of eliminating the important elected officials like town clerk, road commissioner, I mean, planning boards and things like that? I have my own view about planning boards. sometimes elected planning boards don't often.
Well, I just
attract
don't know,
the
I mean, a
best
town
people.
manager, I don't believe is gonna be able to do the job of road commissioner or town clerk, I mean, basically, they're gonna.
No, but he could hire a road commissioner.
Oh, sure, yeah. Could,
And he could, with your, advice and consent, hire a town clerk.
yeah. But
And I've heard that there's not a lot, sometimes there's not a lot of accountability about people showing up for work at certain times, and
Yeah, I suppose, but I mean, again, that, to me, is, I don't think you have to have a different person doing the hiring.
Mhm.
I think that those positions just should be hired, by the
selectmen.
current town managers, which is the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
And then if they're not showing up, I mean, again, if our town was really bigger, I mean, but I don't think you need to add a position above Greg, to tell him what to do and other people what to do. I think that, again, maybe it's just unique to our little snapshot in time here that we've got the right people in the jobs that are doing it. And maybe a few years down the road, that's not the case. But with the current setup, I don't think you need to add another layer, like I said before. And even beyond that, I mean, you're talking about another, $120,000 a year probably, right, Greg? By the time you figure, hiring someone and benefits and all that. And when I first got elected, I actually tried to have some staff meetings, just me, where I'd go and get groups of people together. And I still think that makes sense. I mean, if anything, maybe, we talk about the Board of Selectmen, it's never been a paid position. Now, we do get a stipend now, it's $1,500 a year, which, I mean, anybody, knows that that doesn't cover you for very long. It's you're basically volunteering your time. If on an hourly rate, it doesn't do much, but, I mean, maybe you do make the position, the board, a little more powerful. Maybe you do add a paycheck to it, make it a job that you're there more than, I mean, we meet every other week now. When I first got elected, we used to meet every Monday, because we always had stuff going on. I'd leave at 11 o'clock with a big headache every Monday night. But, once we got the right people in place, I mean, things were running pretty smoothly, so you didn't have as much to talk about. You don't need to be there as much. But maybe you do want the Board of Selectmen to be there more often. Maybe you do want them to, especially if there's 5, be in charge of certain departments and reporting back to the rest of the board. But again, me personally, I don't think you need to hire a town manager at this point in time, or a town administrator.
Would you recommend a salary or some sort of increase in the
Well,
stipend from 5 to 10,000, or do you have
I think that
a number that would be
in Haverhill, the
20?
the city council.
Now you'll get people to run.
Get enough nominations.
When it changes everything.
In Haverhill, the city council, I believe, gets paid, they used to be like around $7,500 a year, were
Well,
they, or
more than
something?
that.
Is that what?
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
Was
I
it?
think they was good.
And they.
5 to 10,000, I'm right in the middle.
And they would get
And
health
retirement
insurance too.
and
And they're not even the mayor, I'd say the Board of Selectmen is essentially the three-headed mayor, because we're the top dogs. So, I don't know, it could be somewhere around there. Maybe, somewhere 5 to 10,000, I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I can say that since I'm not gonna be running, So,
As a selectman.
As soon as the pay goes up though, I'm coming back, no.
Offsets the cost of
As a
running.
selectman, how many committees are you on? And,
It just depends, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head.
is that to your discretion, or you're required to be on?
There's some boards certainly, it's required to have a selectman serve on. What we typically have done, like, as far as like, historically, in our recent history, school stuff like I've served on,
Regional fire.
yeah, things like that, it just depends, yeah, there's.
As needed basis.
As needed as well.
But if there was an increase, you may require more committee,
Maybe, yeah,
committees that they would serve on.
yeah.
I think one of the things I heard from speaking with 2 other towns, that when you expand to 5, you can assign different select persons to be liaisons
Sure.
with different departments. And I also think that, and I'm just thinking out loud, that if you increase the salary, you may get people who are more interested in spending more time
Sure.
being a liaison with the different departments. Or if you increase the salary, Dan said 5 to 10, I said 20 jokingly, you'll get the 3 who would be more interested in, spending more time out of their private jobs to
Yeah. I
be
think-
liaisons.
It may be prohibitive, cost prohibitive for some people that want to serve, that they might not have the means to devote the amount of time necessary.
Sure.
So would compensation make sense
It may. You're
to
right.
attract people?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look at the three of us now, I mean, we all work locally. You
We'd
know,
all like to
we don't
volunteer,
have to
but-
commute anywhere. I'm not spending 4 hours a day on a commute to Boston, so, you know, I mean, it's, people who do that, I can see why somebody wouldn't be giving up more time when their day is already 12 hours long, you know. But, you know, maybe they can.
Real much
You're right.
How much that?
Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Taylor?
I have more comments, and just point out, you mentioned the board, you know, maybe Board of Selectmen, you know, could be made more powerful. I think the Board of Selectmen already has the capabilities of being more powerful and influence, you know, all these problems that people keep saying they're hearing about, you know, within this building. I think, you know, the board as it is doesn't, I don't think they need anyone to give them power to address it. They can address some of those things already. And a lot of talk comes up about appointments and making some elected positions appointed. But I just wanted to point out that even if they're appointed, a lot of these positions would still have to be appointed for a term. So you still, rather than have them go before the town electorate and be voted out, they're still gonna be there for a term. And I think unless you impeach them, which I think we'd have probably, I'm not sure what your ability there would be even to get somebody out who's appointed for a term during the middle of the term just because people don't like what they're doing. And that's usually why terms are staggered over the terms of the appointing body, so that way they have some autonomy. So when we talk about these appointments, I don't know, maybe Greg has more insight on it, but you just gotta be mindful. It still doesn't mean that people get to be, you know, fired if there's a lot of complaints about it.
Well, no, I understand that, and I didn't say that. I'm saying that at least, you know, there's that chain of command where we can ask them to come talk to us and.
And what I'm saying is, unless they serve at the pleasure of the selectmen, where they're more of an employee, but if it's appointed for a term, if they're appointed for a 3-year term, and you say, we want you to come in and talk to you, they don't have to.
Right,
You
no.
can't you still can't really get rid of them.
So make them 1-year
Then
appointments.
they probably won't be.
Well, some of these might be those are the people,
You could still have terms of the contract, though.
no, it's
No.
usually even if you appoint the planning board, if you're elected for certain terms, I think if they're being appointed, they're those same terms, usually with this like 3-year, 5-year, you know, they usually stay.
Yeah, and you know, and my problems with the planning board aside, over the years, I still, like, when I said appointments, I'm looking at the more the day-to-day operations, you know, like the road commissioner.
And
things like
those,
that, you know.
and those I agree, because when you run into, there's a lot of, I think, elected positions that people like overlook. They see them on the ballot and they probably check off the person that wants to run. And these positions you have to have, but at a certain point, you know, do you really need to make this person run? You know, there's usually more qualifications, like road commissioner is an excellent example. There should be qualifications for that job, otherwise, you know, anyone could be doing it. I'm thinking worse. I mean, and to get it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the only requirements for the elected positions is 18 and a resident of town.
I think so.
So, you know.
That's really make an expert on your nomination papers too, I think, you know.
Yeah, get some signatures. If you get the signatures, you're 18, you know, and you live in the town, you could be the road commissioner.
Anything else, Phil, before we go to Lisa?
No, I think that was about it.
Lisa?
Bill, could you speak to the issue of quorum and the ability of the board to be functional in terms of being able to vote on issues? How frequent is quorum because somebody needs to recuse themselves for one reason or another? How frequently is that an issue?
Well, it certainly can be an issue. I mean, you know, the most obvious one in our current board is because Betty's son is a police officer, so she recused herself from all the police activities. So if there's been an issue with the police department lately where I've thought that we should be doing some sort of a review, and Don doesn't agree with me, so it's 1-to-1. You know, I mean, so nothing happens. I mean, you know, so I suppose the likelihood when you have 5 people, you know, of having 2 with the same issue probably is less. So that would be one thing. I mean, that again, until recently, it never really was an issue. Over the last couple of years, it has been. I mean, they have, you know, the town clerk can come in and when, what is the rule of, what is it?
Rule of necessity.
But that's not like with that example I gave, that
That's
doesn't
not-
apply,
yeah.
you know, because it's not a necessity, it doesn't have to
Like
happen.
payroll.
But, yeah, payroll, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another reason to do it.
Anything else, Lisa?
No, that's it.
On this side of the table. Joe?
Did you have something, Kathy?
Well, when are we gonna, do you want me to wait and do this?
I want to
Yeah.
finish up with Bill and
Go
then
finish it.
we'll
I have-
wrap up.
Then I'll pass and wait my turn.
All right, I have one comment and one question. The comment is, I agree with you that in 2010, when this issue of the town meeting issue of 3 to 5 seemed to me to be politically motivated, and I think it was, and I didn't understand what the problems were, but people I sensed that there was an issue, some conflict, and so I feel that you insinuated that this is a compliment, that this process this time around is different. Because I presented myself to you folks that, I said, you know, I have an idea about, maybe doing a petition, and you came up with a great idea, Betty. I said, well, why don't we convene a committee? And so it does feel different, and I take that as a compliment. There is no political motivation here. Even myself as a candidate, there's no political motivation, there's no secret agenda. And I think we are in a position to present to you a recommendation to do or not do something, and then, it's up to you folks to decide. So I thank you for that compliment that you implied. I have a question, and I noticed that Chief Karmelowitz and Officer Gillen are here as well. But I wanted to see if I could explore with you if you've had any experience, or if this Board of Selectmen has had any experience with that concept of a liaison. Is Donnie a liaison to the police department now? Is that something that we're kind of experimenting with?
Yeah.
Because one of my concerns is if we do go to 5, I like the idea of let's have a good reason for that. One of them is let's make them liaison, but I'm not sure what the heck that is. And if you folks are working on something like that now, maybe you can all chime in.
Yeah, I mean, Don is the liaison to the police department. That came about with the last contract negotiation with the chief. And that was at the suggestion of the town council. We said we wanted to know stuff before it happened. And he said, well, if we bring, again with the court, if the select want to hear about it, bring the chief and talk to us, then you have to post a meeting and do all that stuff. And then if you're going to talk about somebody else, you have to let them know, and all the stuff that you have to do that you're legally required to do. So our town council suggested to be a liaison, and that is done. In my eyes, I still think there's shortcomings, and the reason is because Don, or whoever it would happen to be, can speak with the chief. But then at that point, all it is the information just gets forwarded to me. I can't say to Don, well, Don, I think we should do this, Don, I think we should do that, because, you can't do that stuff. You're violating open meeting law. I think that you can say, well, I think we should meet and talk about it, but then it kind of defeats the whole purpose. So I think that the liaison works better with 5 people, because at that point, the liaison says to me, hey, this is what I talked to the chief, and I said, really? Well, what's this? I think we should be doing this. Haven't violated, it's just 2 of us, so I can do that. You can talk to the other people, so.
And then you can decide
ran
if
into a
you...
problem though.
What?
When you mentioned that the liaison can talk to you and then talk to other members, now you're running into the situation I think the Boston City Council faced themselves in. We're having one person to get around the open meeting laws, went to everyone and then brought back.
Well, no, that's not what I mean. I don't think that you get consensus and voted. I think I don't know. I think it just allows you a little more freedom to talk about it and ask questions. I mean, and it's still, and then still at some point you have to.
Come together.
Yeah, you don't have to make decisions, you
Right.
just gather information.
So if the chief has an issue, or a concern, I'll just make this up, you talk to Don about it. Don will funnel it to, if you will, to the Board of Selectmen, and then someone will have to make a decision. We either talk about it in a public meeting, if we can talk about it in a public meeting, or we have to bring it to an executive summary. So would you feel that with a 5-member board, it would be safer?
I think so. I mean, I understand what Phil is saying, and you certainly can't use it to circumvent the open meeting law, but I think it makes it a little easier.
Well, thank you. I think open meeting law is a big burden for small government. It's unbelievable.
Sure is.
Anything else, Joe?
No, thank you. That's fine. Thanks.
Michelle?
All set, thank you.
Mrs. Gordon?
So,
Okay, with that, thank you very much.
Yeah, great.
Selectman Dark, appreciate it.
I'm gonna go home and eat dinner, thank you. See you later.
All right, with that, next on the agenda, we've been planning it for a long time to vote to whether or not to make recommendations to expand the Board of Selectmen to 5.
I did.
Really?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But before we do that, I would like to go around the table and have everyone just make one point as to what's a pro and a con, and if they want to give a short synopsis of their opinion before we vote on that. And certainly I can take questions from the public and the attendees here if they wish to. But before we ask a lot of questions from the public, I'd like to have everyone on the committee make their statements, so you know where we stand. Phil, start on the left.
Well, I think it should go to 5. I think the quorum issue is a very important one. There's lots of risks there. I don't think I can't foresee any dysfunctionality between 5 and 3. I see the board acting and debating in much the same way. I envision that they'd be able to spread themselves out a little more, so as a board they can be more involved, because there's 5 people, you know, kind of watching different things and bringing back to the table as opposed to just 3. There is a need to, I think, some positions in town actually, you know, should be appointed, and having a 5-member board, I think would get a lot of support about making some of those positions appointed, because it's not going to have the rule of 2, because a 3-member board at the town's run by 2. With a 5-member board, it's 3. I still envision we probably still will have 4-1 or 5-0 votes, but when you have what I presume to be, you know, an important issue the board wants to look at, 1 member has to recuse themselves, and you get 2 people that they have their own opinions, and probably both of them valid and rightfully so, but how do you break that logjam? With a 5-member board, it would take 3 people with such a conflict to put yourself back in that same situation. I think that's unlikely. As well, you know, I think that the other issues that people might bring up as a con, I don't think they're valid reasons not to go to 5. People commenting that there hasn't been much candidate pool. Well, I think if there's more, if there's open positions, I think you'll find more people to run. I presume that there's probably lots of people that would consider running, but no one feels that that they'd be better than the person that's already there, and that they're happy with that person. But when you have more openings, I think you'll get more people. If not, the position will get filled in some way, or the position will be open, but that doesn't change the fact that we'd still have a 5-member board and have that option there. So I think that's all I can think of at the moment, but yeah, overall in favor of it.
Okay, Lisa?
I'm in favor of a 5-member board. I think it's clear from this board that people really aren't ready to consider a town manager or a town administrator. With that said, I think with a 5-member board, if there were some examination of the compensation for those positions, that there would be more incentive for people to run for those. I agree with the issue of the quorum, that it's less likely to happen with 5 people. But I think that having 5 members and potentially looking at increasing the compensation may allow for more lively involvement. And people might be more inclined to run for those positions.
I'm leaning towards a 5-member board. I have some concerns about, given the town's past history of people not getting involved, the quality of the candidates. I also, from what Bill had stated, am sensitive to, like he said, he and Dawn were in a 1-1 tie. Betty couldn't vote. Betty, given the different circumstances, if one of them couldn't vote, I hate to put somebody in the position of having to exercise the rule of necessity, because while it's legal, it's not very pleasant. I think if we increase to 5 and recommend an increase in compensation that we can then put upon the selectmen, hopefully, to get more involved as liaisons with the different departments. I also think if we're going to expand to 5, whether we have a town manager or not, or a town administrator, we need to, the important positions in this town need to be appointed so that they will at least be under the, for lack of a better word, the jurisdiction of the selectmen, and be called on the carpet that you're doing a good job, you're doing a bad job, and this is, you know, if you don't shape up, you will shape up. So on balance, I'm in favor of an expansion to 5.
Very good. Kathy?
Okay, I'm not gonna read all, I'll bullet it, that's down. I had a day off on Monday, so.
Oh, I know, but.
Too much free time, I get going.
Is this your brief statement?
This is my brief statement, yeah. Hey, I didn't speak on the other issues, so I saved time.
All right, you have 30 seconds left.
Give me like 2 minutes. So, anyway, some of the research I did, going through all the materials we've collected and some of the things that you guys have provided to me, and then looking into the general laws, I can come to find out that the Mass General Laws allows a 3 to 5 member Board of Selectmen, making this, I believe, a somewhat easy transition for us because it might just require a town meeting vote. There's something that's said to be a weak system is characterized by local ballot electing so many positions, and when you create a larger Board of Selectmen, you might be able to create a stronger town government. But my most important reason for supporting the 5-member Board of Selectmen is that I actually want to maintain our town meeting form of self-governance. I like going to town meeting and be able to discuss and make decisions and not have a lot of bureaucracy above that deciding everything for me. I think a 5-member Board of Selectmen would allow us to continue on as we go and handle the larger workload. We've already mentioned the quorum. A nice thing about the 5-member board would be that it would allow for 2 more elected positions, so it opens up more involvement to the citizens. The survey of 30 similar towns, I think by Lisa, was that you? Showed that over about 50% of them have already moved to a 5-member board. I also think it might resolve the issue of term limits that some people have brought up, in that I think with a 5-member board there would be more movement in the board, there would be turnover. I just don't think we get 5 members for life. I believe the board could tackle more projects and spread the workload out to improve effectiveness and efficiency. Again, we've already touched on the issue of the board members having conflict and not being able to participate. I think 5 members would take care of that. I think expanding the board would also increase the confidence in the board as an appointing authority, which may open up the window to allow more elected positions to become appointed. Again, what everybody said, the legal compliance with the open meeting law, I think we've been over that a lot. And that's basically it. This is in draft form. I just started putting it all down because I had a day off. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a brief statement. I didn't have a day off.
I did.
I'm in favor of 5-member board. I think the most important reason for that is I think as a town, what's happened is that people are predisposed to lawyer up when they speak to each other, or are predisposed to call an authority and complain, and we've lost the ability to talk to one another. And I think that part of the reason is that there isn't a feeling of inclusiveness. There seems to be just a few people involved in government, and that's also discouraged people from coming out and being involved. That's why we have so many commissions and boards, I think, that are not filled, because there's a pervasive feeling that there's only a few people in charge in town, and there's really no open invitation for me to be involved. So I think by changing the board from 3 to 5, it will send out the right signal to a growing and diverse population that you're invited. You know, we need you. We've got open positions. And I know that there's talented people in this town and passionate. And I think that is the primary reason to change from 3 to 5, is just to create an open invitation for more people to be involved. And I think by bringing in more people, it'll change the nature of our conversations, and I think that it will probably reduce the conflict and the confrontation that exists today. I have to commend the Board of Selectmen, and Betty's here tonight. I came to this town 20 years ago, and you know what? It's still a very well-run town. The trash is picked up, and the snow is plowed, and my kids have had an awesome education, and the tax bill is low. So there isn't a heck of a,
Yeah.
there isn't,
Mine's not.
hasn't been you know, it's not a problem town, it's just the way that internally, we've got some serious problems. And I'm concerned about that. So the second part is the open meeting law. I think that's a big problem. I think it's so unfair that those of us in small government have to deal with this burden called open meeting law, and the rest of government at state level, they do a lot of stuff behind closed doors without a problem. So, but that's just the way it is. That's the law. We have to, you know, adhere to it. And then the third and last reason that I think a 5-member board would be beneficial is that I think a little bit of outreach to the different departments and commissions and boards, even though I haven't quite understood or developed it in my mind, but I like this idea of the liaison, where all the commissions and boards will have a go-to person on the Board of Selectmen to bring their concerns, so that that person can filter that information back to the board and eventually address issues. But we have to figure out the protocol on how to do that. You know, we've got to be careful. So if someone from a certain board has a concern, do we bring it to the Board of Selectmen and deal with it in an open meeting or executive session? And, you know, we can work that out. So those are 3 good reasons. Open meeting law, and getting more people involved so that we can reduce, you know, become more transparent, speak to each other a little bit more in human terms instead of lawyering up all the time, and establishing liaison, meaning that 5 members on this Board of Selectmen will be responsible for interacting with assigned boards and commissions and departments. I think it's a great concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Michelle?
All right,
Comments?
so I'm in favor of staying at 3. I moved to this town less than a year ago, and it seems to run pretty well in my opinion. I've lived in many bigger towns and smaller towns in Massachusetts, and I do have to say this, at least I can come here and talk to the same people day after day, and at least can have familiar faces and they're polite to me. My other reasons for staying at 3 is I really am not in favor of bigger government is always the best fix for everything. And we can see on a national level that the bigger the government gets, there's more discussions, more opinions. And while that does help in some sense, it can hinder the process. It can slow down a lot of processes. And you can get into a standstill, even with a 5-person, you can still get a gridlock that somebody's out and cannot vote on an issue, and you still could get a stalemate of 2-2, and there's still that same issue, whether or not it's 2-2 with 1 out or 1-1 with 1 out. So, and I do understand the ethics concerns, but I don't think that's a compelling enough reason to really bring our town up to 5 people. So, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
How about you?
How are you?
My voice is not
I'm
strong.
fine. Get over my flu.
I think I got it. I just was elected to my 5th term. So when I finish this ride, it'll be 15 years. And I've been proud to serve this community. And I served with Kathy and Barbara Sheehan, where we were the first female board in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for a very long time. And an older lady in town wrote to me and she said, I love it, 3 broads on a board, and I got a kick out of that. She was 90 years old. And Dick Shocker's here tonight, and he served this community very well. Thank you, Dick. I know it's not an easy job, and you did your best, as Donnie has, and Bill has, and Kathy. I've listened to my colleague, and I hate to say goodbye to him because I loved serving with him. But I am going to tell you that I feel 3 is ample enough people on a board to run this community and run it well. We've always been inclusive. Anybody could walk in that door at any given time and talk to us about an issue. It was only recently that things went astray, and that's most unfortunate for a lot of people. So I always thought I was a problem solver, and I think the liaison position, the one we just tried out, didn't work out as well as it should have. maybe we need to give that another shot if we should have more people. But I do say we should continue with 3 members of the Board of Selectmen, and that's how I'll be voting this evening. And thank you to Greg LeBrecq for all he's done. I think he's felt the heat here, thinking, well, what are they trying to do, replace me? And that's not the case, Greg. You do.
I'm just here in case you guys had any questions
A lot
before I run
with
into
a little.
CPA.
And I know you see people all day long and you try to solve problems. Sometimes, you know, you're not the ice cream man, but you're a good guy. Thank you.
Thank you.
That being said, did anybody have any questions about structure or anything before I head out the door? I can go? Thanks.
Thank you.
My position.
CPA is in the other room. You gonna go there too?
My position initially, my initial reaction, knee-jerk reaction was 5 would be better. More hands to help out, delegate the work. Bigger's better. You can certainly get more done with more bees. But seems to be to me that the driving force on this is one of the primary reasons for the change would be ethical issues. And I understand we're at new times, and I agree that our society has gotten mean and nasty in many ways, and we need to act more civil. We could certainly be the Middle East if we want to be, but I don't think we want to be. If we could go back to just you know, mutual respect for one another, or we could get back to business of straightening out the country. In terms of increasing numbers to solve problems, we have a Congress with several hundred members, and they seem to find ways to gridlock, and they're crippling the nation in many ways. So I see gridlock as a scalable thing. You can have one person that cannot vote for some reason, and you get a 2-to-2 situation. You can get 3-to-3. So I'm also for smaller government, and I believe that if you have more people, they almost inevitably want to do more. And governments are here to do good things. I mean, the working government, they provide services, and the debate at the local level and at the higher levels is usually more or less of a particular service. So I think if we have more people in government, we're going to get more government, and I think it'll ultimately result in higher taxes. So I'm going to vote against expanding to 3. I think if it isn't broken, don't fix it. I think the ethical issues can be mitigated with just common decency. So that's my position.
Call for the vote.
And,
How about the public?
yeah, I'd like to
Anyone who wants to
welcome
speak?
anyone who would like to speak or address us, ask me a question or anyone particularly on the committee. We're all at your disposal.
Well, I'd just like to make a comment,
Could you
Mr. Chairman.
state who you are for the record?
It's a police chief.
The police chief.
Chief Kamelowitz from the Groveland Police Department. As a department head, I just would like to, make some comments on my opinion, 3 versus 5 member board, how it affects the running of the police department. Mr. Demore hit on it earlier, brought up the liaison that we've had. I'm actually in favor of the liaison, and the reason this came about was because last year I had to deal with a sensitive issue with a member of my department who has a relative on the Board of Selectmen. That causes a problem.
Hold on.
Do you want this to continue?
No. We need to just stick with the questions relative to the expansion of 3 to 5. I don't think we can get into internal
Well,
affairs.
I think
I think
he had a conflict, and
he needs to.
why 3 and 5 would be
Right.
I think he needs to be more broad about,
Yeah.
no
less
specific.
specific.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
a
it was a
general.
Hypothetical situation.
Yeah, we gotta stand clear of that. I don't.
Yeah.
I want to go on the record as objecting because it's very easy to figure this out. Why was the chief invited here? Is he voting? Is his
Well, Betty,
I
it
just
is-
don't understand why.
It is a public meeting.
It is a public meeting, but I don't want anybody's rights
Well,
violated.
I think we should
John.
go in reverse and just say the chief foresees there could be conflicts between a small board and a larger board.
Is that his point?
I think that's what you're trying to make.
Are you representing him, John?
No, not at all. Trust me.
Thank you.
I think we need to stay.
I'm not sure what to write.
Yeah, just,
I'm sitting here saying, okay, favors liaison position, and then,
You want me to continue?
For the record, the chief asked, I think via email, if you could attend it. I believe it's open to the public. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. The subject matter of this evening, I'd like to stick with a agenda, which is, benefits and burdens, pros and cons of expanding from 3 to 5, without getting into specific personnel issues or anything that are privileged or sensitive items here.
Absolutely.
Is that fair enough, sir?
Absolutely.
Betty, do you still object for the record that he's speaking?
I would like to go on the record as letting you know I have an issue with this at this point.
That he should not be allowed to speak?
No, he can speak, but we're not here to decide about liaisons. We're
I'm not
here to
sure
vote
what
this
you're
evening, whether we expand from 3 to 5.
Yeah, I think we got off the subject on the liaisons. I just want
It seemed to take on a life of its own.
Right, it did. It went off on a tangent. So I'd like to get back on track to the 3 to 5 because that was next on our agenda
Sure.
to vote. So
That's fine.
before we voted on the 3 to 5 issue, I wanted to,
That's
see if
fine.
there were any issues on that 3 to 5 issue.
okay, but, Chairman, just for me, for the minutes, it's not like a court of law, there's no objection, I'm not sure what to write.
She wants to go on record just
As what?
as that she.
I have an issue with just where the discussion's going, Kathy.
So you want me
And
to
I don't
write?
want anybody's rights to be.
So I'm just
But
curious.
I think the chief,
But
but
the
I
chief
think the chief's gonna
acknowledges-
step back a little bit and
Yeah,
realize, and be more
So-
broader sense and
That's all, I'm
maybe
just
the.
trying to figure out what the minutes have to say, that's all I want to know.
Well, we have 3 attorneys here, so I'm sure.
Yeah, between 3 of you, could someone tell me what we're supposed to put in the minutes?
Just
Well,
say that.
Say that Betty objected to the conversation going in the direction of a liaison between the Board of Selectmen and the
And
police
the
department.
issue that they
And
may
he
have been.
mentioned somebody
With a
within
specific
his
issue.
department.
Specific
We-
issue.
Objected to direction of discussion, okay.
And specific comment that there was a conflict
So we're
between
not
his
New York
department and a
City,
member of the
we're the
board.
town of Groveland.
I understand that, this is a small town.
I'm just trying to put, I usually don't put.
Being a small town, I don't think he said anything beyond what people
Bill, I'm
already
talking to the
know.
chair. I'm talking through the chair.
I'm talking to the chair
I
also.
just, in field of your questions, sir, I would like you to just not point to any personnel within the department, if that's fair.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay to continue, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, as a department head and having to deal with the Board of Selectmen, there becomes a problem when one of the board members has to recuse themselves. So, now you're down to 2 board members that would have to vote on something. And I understand even the committee has said you could still run into the same problem if you maybe only had 4 members that could vote on a 5-member board. You could still end up with a tie. The problem is, it really hinders us only being able to deal on a regular basis with 2 selectmen. One selectman has to recuse himself from anything to do with the police department. So one of the problems that we faced is, since I took over in 2008, we had 4 supervisors. Now we're down to 3 supervisors. And if I come over and ask to talk about another supervisor, I'm just giving you an example, if I have a 1-to-1 vote, it doesn't go anywhere. I can't even really try to bring up my point and reason with anybody.
But isn't a 1-to-1 vote just that it fails?
Exactly.
Isn't that what?
Yes, so this affects us,
So
on
one-
the operation of the police department, just having 2 members constantly to deal with, there's no exceptions. So that,
When they're deadlocked, you mean?
yes,
Oh, so if you want to, if you have a request, and one member has to recuse themselves, and then the other 2 don't agree, then the request is not fulfilled, and it can't even be debated, or the petition is dead.
absolutely.
Oh.
And it happens,
Too often.
anytime that we need to come before the board, we can only talk to 2 board members. Even if it was 4 board members, part of a 5-member board, if one person couldn't be there, we would still have more members to deal with. We would at least have 3.
So generally speaking, you would be able to conduct business and open up communication channels more so with 5 than 3.
Right.
Is that fair enough?
Yeah, that's the point. That's how I started, like, going where you
So the
wanted to go.
communication channels are limited.
Exactly.
And
Right, and then as Selectman Doc said earlier, if Selectman Graney tells him something, they really can't do anything with it, because we only have the 2-member board. So it's not the situation that we've tried to initiate really isn't helping us.
so the flow of information would be freed up, and you think that would accomplish more things?
Absolutely, that's the point I want to make.
Okay.
Can I add just one clarification? But you're also talking about decision-making is not possible.
Well, if we need a vote from the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
I mean, the decisions,
So you go to your boss, and you're asking him to make a decision about something, and he can't.
right, or there's something that maybe we can't even discuss.
Right, got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This situation that the chief alluded to has only recently presented itself. When Chief Weeks left, Chief Kamelowitz applied for the job. There was no bigger supporter of Chief Kamelowitz than Selectman Gorski. So I have always been an advocate for law enforcement and public safety, always.
Have there always been an open communication channel? Has there been a log jam there between the Board of Selectmen and any department?
No, there has not been a log jam between the Board of Selectmen and the police department. We've always wanted the police department, the fire department. People are working time to have the best equipment.
Any department.
So it's just recently that something, presented itself that was most unfortunate.
Can I ask a question?
Go on.
Chief, how long have you been on the department?
Approximately 25 years.
And Deputy Chief Gillen, you've been on there quite a while.
23 years, sir.
How often has this type of situation arisen in those 20-odd years?
The situation that,
No, just any time that you have 3 selectmen and somebody's an
An
employee.
impasse situation.
Yeah, an impasse situation.
well, I can't speak from previous administrations.
No, but since you've been in office, you must have been aware of situations where the former chiefs had.
Well, I can say that anytime there's been a relationship that selectman has to recuse himself. So, the reason that I'm bringing this up now is a 5-member board has never been discussed prior to this. There's never been a committee formed.
But you would still have access to the other 2 Board of Selectmen, and if they decided not to, let's say you're initiating, you need some new cruisers, all right? There's a stalemate. But I guess you don't get them. I mean, isn't that the answer? I mean, that could still happen with 2 to 2.
Yes, it could.
3 to 3.
It's less likely, though.
It's less likely.
Very,
You're
very
playing
less
probability statistics, so I understand.
In my memory, I'm sorry, it has to be recognized. I don't think these
I'll recognize you,
departments
Elizabeth.
has ever been denied anything that they've requested. I have no recollection of that during the term of Chief Weeks.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out whether,
Okay.
5 selectmen would open up the channels for.
Could I just say
Mr.
something?
Chair, if I may?
Yeah, I guess, maybe I'm not saying exactly what the chief is saying, but I think, again, I took some time to really read through the reports. I don't know if everybody has taken the time to read through everything we've gathered. It's not to say that our town isn't a fairly well-run town, a well-run town, but I think with a 5-member board, we would be more equipped to face the future. We would be better run than we are now. There would be more people involved in the decision-making, which you're hearing from the chief of the police, that he favors that concept. And I mean, that's to me a very important point that, we have gone for a long time with a 3-member board of selectmen, and I've been on it. You work very hard. It's also very difficult because you do have conflicts. It's a small town. I have members on the fire department. I had to recuse for that, and it's difficult. And I think with a 5-member board, that would become a minimal disruption to the operation of the board, with one person maybe leaving the room at a time. And I think then you would still have 4 people involved in decision-making, and I favor that. I think that would make our town stronger, more effective, and more efficient. And if we go forward from this meeting and perhaps hear from other department heads, which I think we should do, I wonder if we might hear the same comment from other department heads.
So you're saying we should delay the vote?
No, I think we should go ahead and vote, and then I think we should continue to gather evidence. I mean, I came up with 9 reasons right now to go forward. I've only heard that our trash gets picked up on time and the roads are plowed, which is nice, and that, you know, we have nice people running for the Board of Selectmen. I mean, you know, that's not a compelling reason to not move forward to what looks like a very proactive change for the town, and not a very disruptive change, because we still maintain our town meeting form of government. We still maintain our ability to have input into the process of running our town, and I like that. So I think this is a good thing.
Can I ask a question?
All right,
When John and Kathy, when you folks were studying changing the financial department,
Yes.
did you not allow for other boards, just like we've had with the chief, other boards and commissions?
We had a lot of people in.
Yeah, we
And
did.
how, and can you think we, I'm not gonna make a motion, but is it something that we could have consensus that we can do after today's vote?
But if we vote, it's a fait accompli.
But we could get their input still to conclude in the report.
Well, you may get the Board of Assessors coming in here saying we don't need 5 selectmen. As you remember, that was 1996.
Yeah.
Of course, my memory's starting to fade, but we spent a good 8 or 9 months
Interviewing, yes.
interviewing people.
We did.
So if we do that, you're suggesting we should hold off on the vote?
Well, I think,
Mr. Chair, I have to ask, are we taking public comment, or are we having discussion now? Because I don't know if there's other people who want to talk.
No, you're right, Phil.
I mean, this is discussion about a motion, it seems more, not about.
Yeah, it's straight away, yeah.
well, unless the chief and the deputy chief
Let's get back to the
need
chief.
to have something else to
Do
say.
we have any more questions? All right, is there any more discussion for the chief?
Well, just, I could finish up. I didn't answer Mr. Christopher's question. There really hasn't been many times that I can remember when there's been a problem, but there has been some lately, and Selectman Dock actually spoke of one earlier, where he's been wanting to do a review of the police department, and Selectman Graney doesn't want to. And at this point, we can't vote, or the board can't vote to determine what to do. Selectman Graney doesn't think it's necessary to spend $10,000 because the department's running fine.
Yes.
So we have a problem there again. This is the only 2 members can vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
In your view, 5 would make your job easier.
Yes, it would.
Thank you.
Just a quick question to the chief. Who brought up the idea of doing a review? Did it come internally?
We're getting off. I'd like to stop that there. Thank you very much, chief.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Well, actually, no, I think it goes right to the point, because if
I'm
the
not-
idea of the review came.
I'm not gonna lie, you're getting specific
Yeah.
on
No, I'm not, no.
off-point topics.
No, we're talking about going to 3 to 5 and where the log jams are. I'm just curious, if the
It could be any log jam, we're getting into a specific
Yeah,
log.
I don't think we should get.
You know what, I just have to point out, you guys went all off in that direction, and then when I have a question about something which I think is on point, about the issue of 3 to 5, it's no, let's shut this down. All it is, did the request for review come from the police department going to the selectmen saying, can you do this? Or did it come from the selectmen going to the police department? Who raised the idea first? I don't
Can I answer that, Mr.
I
Chairman?
don't see where that's an
You
issue.
can answer that.
It came from Selectman Dock.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else would like to?
Any other public, sir?
No, I'm gonna hold
Else
my
wanna chime in?
comment
Are you a reporter?
for now. No. Far from it.
Cameraman? Okay.
To go back to Joe's issue,
I don't think we should delay the vote. We decided to vote last time we covered. I think people are anxious to resolve this. I think we've spotted the issues. I think we have enough information. I'd like to put it before the floor to vote on the expansion from 3 to 5.
I'd like to make a motion to take a vote tonight as to whether or not we'd like to expand from 3 to 5.
Okay. Seconded?
I'll second.
I'm not sure I understood what the motion was.
The motion is to vote on expanding from 3 to 5.
So is the vote, the board makes the recommendation?
recommendation,
To
yeah.
make the
Vote
recommendation, yes.
To the Board of Selectmen.
We can't do anything, we can only recommend.
Was there a second?
Yes, I seconded it.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, what, are we voting already?
Well,
Yes.
we're voting now, but I guess you,
John's like-
To move forward with the vote.
Oh, you don't vote to move forward with the vote, you moved your vote.
All right, we're voting.
Let's vote this.
All right, I'm voting.
Let's vote.
Aye.
Well, then, all those in favor of 5?
Aye.
Show of hands.
Okay, wait, so I can get it all done.
that's why you need a moment to write down the.
You need to learn shorthand.
I usually bring my computer, I forgot. So,
Is your hand up?
yeah, it is. Shush. So,
Do you still need our hands up?
no, I got you, so, I got Phil.
Betty,
Okay.
no, I'm sorry.
No, Betty didn't.
Those opposed?
I'm saying it was opposed.
Okay, wait. I know who it is anyway. Two people that didn't vote yes. And Dan. Gotcha.
What was that?
5 to
That
3.
passes.
5 to 3.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
Government Advisory Committee voted to recommend to increase the Board of Selectmen from 3 to 5 by
5 to 3.
a showing of 5 to 3, 5 in favor and 3 opposed. Let the record stand. So
How do we go from here?
the next step on that is we could either assign a task to write that recommendation up for the next meeting for review, or we can table that until we discuss all the other agenda.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I don't think there's really a need to write anything up right now. I think it could be presented to the Board of Selectmen that, you know, we voted in favor of it, probably just give them a presentation.
Verbally.
Verbally present, because I think the Board of Selectmen would then need to decide what is their board's position gonna be? Because their board, I think, needs to decide that they're going, well, you're right, and I think the Board of Selectmen, I think, owes a duty to the town to make a decision that they're going to put the article on the warrant based upon, or the Board of Selectmen doesn't have to agree with this board's recommendation, and that they're not going to put it on the warrant. That way, if somebody else wants to put it on, they can. And then when it comes to, and then I think the Board of Selectmen maybe should either charge this committee or another committee. There might be members on this committee that don't want to participate if it's going in a different direction with, you know, maybe working on how to put that to town meeting, maybe to do a presentation to town meeting, or anything else to kind of.
Could you comment on that, Betty, as to the formalities of?
I think it would be a good idea if this board got on the agenda to see the Board of Selectmen and told the Board of Selectmen what the majority of this board, how they felt and the reasons why. And maybe the 3 that do not support it could also weigh in, and I don't know where I'd sit on both seats, but it can go on the warrant. And let people decide. You know, we have many articles. Board of Selectmen agrees, Board of, disagrees, favorable action, not favorable. So that's the way it should go, and let the people, listen to the recommendations, the reasons why, and they'll make up their minds.
Betty, what's the deadline for the warrant?
I think it would be, I think she likes to have,
It's 2 weeks.
is it the end of January? Or
No, it's like maybe a little over 2 weeks. I don't think the deadline is until it has to be
Because
posted.
we have so many late articles, we kind of leave it open, because we don't like to.
It has to-
Could we ask to
It has to
have
be
a,
posted 2 weeks before town
Right.
meeting, so I think you can
Okay,
do
so
it.
that's fine.
no, the
like 3
annual,
weeks would be-
no, annual town meeting is 4 weeks. But in the past, when you know there's something coming forward, they put a placeholder on.
Do it before the board.
Yeah, could we ask for that consideration?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should.
It's 4 weeks for annual.
Okay, then we'll try to schedule something before the Board of Bar Overseers. Do we need a vote? Be the-
There's 3 of us that don't wanna go there.
Sorry, I still have
Well,
a
when's,
lingering flow, the BOS.
When's the next meeting?
When is our next
Is it-
meeting?
I presume it's Monday, right? So that's a little,
Monday night.
Wait a minute,
We're gonna get on the
what are we
agenda
doing
that
now,
way.
schedule it?
I think
Well,
we're still, you
Why
wanna
don't
get
we
in
let
sooner?
Phil coordinate that outside this meeting?
well, no,
Strike
we
that,
need,
let's backpedal a bit in here.
Make sure we're all
schedule.
We would schedule with the Board of Selectmen to present it to them.
Yes.
Would that have to be,
Yeah,
it would-
come into a televised meeting, and that would be a good thing.
What I'm saying
If
is-
anybody's missed
We don't
this.
need
then-
It has to be put on the agenda, though.
Yeah, it's good to call and get on the agenda.
Well,
Not that people haven't walked in
I guess,
and been.
I guess what I'm asking is.
would we all be there, though? Is that the situation?
Would
I don't
Well,
think-
following
We
Monday?
don't all have to be there.
Well, no, that's what I'm asking, it's, the next meeting's Monday, so
Yeah,
I'm
so you
thinking
don't
that
have
would
to-
be a little soon, so
It
maybe,
is soon to get.
I don't know if you could just bring it up to have us put on the agenda for the meeting after that.
Yeah.
That's in
Sure.
like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Or about 2 weeks.
Why don't we do
2
that?
weeks from Monday.
I'd put that.
Does
in
that
writing.
work well for
Dan.
everyone?
2 weeks.
And if not, everybody
No,
else.
I'd
Yeah,
put my
I
request.
agree.
in
Well,
writing.
is there
In
one-
writing.
Just a
Is
couple
it 2
people
weeks
that
from
want to
Monday, or is
present.
that part of
Then
the
we would
study?
be attending.
Well, no, that's why this one just has to-
I'll present that at town meeting.
So we won't ride it, so that's.
I requested in writing that we be added to the agenda, Betty.
Yes, that you'd like to be on the agenda to bring your,
It's the chairman.
And then
By the vote.
all committee members are welcome to attend.
and if everybody can.
But not
everybody-
mandatory.
There's paperwork here to,
So Dan, you'll request the chair, you'll send an email to the chair of the Board of Selectmen to request that we be put on it?
Phil's responsible.
Say that again?
Not Phil, Dan, sorry.
Dan.
I'm just
I
asking.
got it. Dan's responsible.
I'll request that we're on the
Sorry,
agenda
Phil.
2 weeks from,
You've got my number too.
Just send Nancy an email.
at the next meeting. Okay. Moving down the line,
I
7:15.
apologize, I have to leave, I'm sorry.
Okay. Lisa's leaving the meeting.
I should be leaving too, but I'll stick around.
We had on our last, in our last meeting, and I reviewed the minutes, we had discussions regarding topics, including town job descriptions, surveys of tax bills, and which in towns that have added town managers or administrators, and need for a supervisory position. We could start some of those topics this evening, or we could table those topics and pick them up next time. So,
Hey, where exactly does that, I guess, where's the, I'm happy to table, but where are we even going with that?
Yeah, I think what we discussed back before Christmas was, we were gonna take a vote and make a recommendation to selectmen, and then, as I recall, and Kathy can correct me, then we're gonna ask the selectmen if they wanted us to continue on discussions about government reorganization.
Right, that's
beyond
what the minutes
expansion.
of the selectmen
Yeah, so
say.
I don't think we need to really discuss that.
so we're not gonna go to the second part to determine whether or not there's a need for a town manager without going to them first?
I think when we go to the
Is
selectmen,
that
we should.
accurate?
That sounds right.
I think this was your charge, our charge. It was 3 versus 5.
Yeah.
There was another part to it.
There
Did,
was
was
a
there
second
part 2?
Yeah.
I haven't, well,
I'm sorry.
I have the
Yeah, he
selectmen's
had
minutes if you want.
Well, I'll just put, one of the things I know, just looking at these different job descriptions, it told me that there's something else that needs to probably be addressed that may not need a town manager involvement, and I think until those things get addressed, it might be premature to think, like, do we need a fit, one person running the town? Well, we might have everything we need, and, maybe it takes this committee or another committee to kind of work on some other things that might bring all that into place. And it's just these job descriptions, I noticed that they're just so, the format is so different from all the different departments. I think things that should be there are missing, and maybe that's something that would have to be looked at first.
Yeah, I think as Joe said, asking us about the finance director's position, we got everyone in here to learn how they feel about having a centralized, finance situation. If we go to select and say, we recommend 3 to 5, we've had discussions on town manager, town administrator, liaisons, raising compensation, would you further the charge for us to go back and make a further recommendation instead of?
Right. And we can even do that. Conceivably, we could have a 3 to 5, a 5-member board on the warrant this year, and then we can reappoint this committee to continue the study of centralized government, town administrator, that whole, in other words, literally, if we end up with a 5-member board, that 5-member board can recharge a committee to continue that phase of the study. Because I think it's too big, not only for the town, to accommodate two large concepts. One of them is a 3 to 5 plus a town administrator, but I think we should do it in phases over perhaps a year or two, potentially.
Yeah.
Kind of go slow.
Yeah.
It took us a while to get
Yeah.
here, so if we're gonna make changes, we should do them thoughtfully and getting everybody's input.
Because I would love to have a discussion with every board and every commission, planning boards, ZBA, just like we did tonight with the chief, you know, get an opinion from people, pros, cons, you like the idea, you don't like the idea, what are the problems, what
And
are the...
with jobs, not personalities.
Right, absolutely, I agree. I
don't
agree
want
with that.
Right, right.
We have to be...
But my understanding of the charge is twofold, so that we already have the charge, which I have printed out in front of me here, which was sent from Nancy the 2 days after we had that initial appointment. Yeah, that second part of the charge was review the current organization / status of Groveland's town government and report back to BOS. So we could report back to 3 to 5 and then say we're gonna go back and revisit that second part of the charge, which
That
is...
second part is a lofty.
Oh, it's much broader than the 3 to 5. It's certainly not a narrow issue, so.
I think
I think we should ask them for clarification as to department heads or a town administrator, or can you narrow that issue for us? Because otherwise, I think we're gonna go off in too many directions here, and with all due respect to everyone,
But I think overall, we did a pretty good job.
I think to have that discussion about
I think so.
the structure, we'd have to have a pretty big discussion on how to approach it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, just collecting the job descriptions and the flow chart we have, to me, that all tells like nothing.
It's preliminary, I
Yeah,
mean.
but one thing I did notice, which I think might be the first step towards that, is these job descriptions. I think that there's a lot of information that was missing, actually, except for the police department. So not just because you get, this was detailed, and theirs had statutes in it where authorization was coming from, and there almost needs to be a form, and the town seemed to have a form for some of it, but for some of the job, but there should be a form that's, the job, who they report to, who reports to them, salary, statutory authorization, bylaw authorization.
Consistent guidelines.
Like one menu, so no matter which job description you look at, you can see who's reporting to who reports to them, where the pay is, what their statutory obligations are, it looks like.
We recommend you join the personnel board then.
Well,
And just
actually-
get that done.
Well, and that was what I thought, is do we have a personnel board?
Yes.
We're supposed to.
Whether it operates.
Okay, but, and maybe that's part of what it is, because, I mean, these reminded me when I worked for a company, and said, write down what you do during the day. And that's what a lot of these reminded me of, and some of them, like town clerk, it had college requirements and other things. I thought it was 18, I thought the town clerk, you had to be 18 and a citizen of the town, that was it. So I didn't know where, that might be something we want to suggest to focus on, but if the personnel board is supposed to be doing it, then, is there a personnel board, or is it just not a board?
There is a person.
Okay,
I'm not
all right,
ready
Joe,
to
and then I think we
done
adjourn the
yet.
meeting.
It's like
Basically,
meeting.
Basically, it seems what we've done, or what we're going to do is in 3 weeks, we're gonna present to the Board of Selectmen, and we're gonna tell you two things. Number one, we decided as a board to do 5, and everybody who shows up can say yes or no. And then the second thing we're gonna inform you is, thank you for that second charge, but we're not ready for it.
Exactly.
That's basically.
Well, I'd like you to narrow
Or
it.
narrow the
Narrow
issue.
it down.
Or revise it so we can
So
accommodate
there's
it.
no point in us meeting next week or the
Well,
week after until we,
Maybe we should meet after we meet with the selectmen.
Yeah.
We'll reconvene, and maybe before we go to them and say, we can figure out, all right, for us to deal with the second charge, what's a smaller, how are we gonna do it? Is there something smaller we should look at? And if we don't think it can be done the way it is, then we can go back to them and tell them, we don't think this can be done the way it is. But maybe we can break it down into smaller steps to figure out how we can get into this.
Well, if the town meeting vote's going to be in late April or early May
Right.
on the 3 to 5 issue, that shouldn't prevent us from keep working forward
That's right.
and gather data and then
Always
after.
make a presentation of what we have.
Well, and after town meeting, go back and, keep studying and make the recommendations. I don't want to lose the opportunity.
To put it on the.
Well, not on the market, I think it's going to be too much for people to swallow, but I don't want to lose the opportunity for us to kind of stand down
Right.
until April.
But
You're
you're
not
saying,
doing our work on the second part of it.
right, so the second part can continue either before or even right immediately after the town meeting, but getting this 3 to 5 should happen regardless.
Oh, yeah, but I'd like to, even after 2 Mondays from now.
Yeah.
I'd like to keep working on these issues.
Yeah, that's a
get-
parallel.
And-
Yeah, because
But not necessarily put them on town meeting.
No, I would not, I would
No, they
not.
wouldn't be going on television, but that second
I don't
charge,
know.
I think, is a huge thing
It's
to
a
fight.
big task.
That's a
And
two-year
we have to
process.
figure out what type of information we need to do this. And I'm learning that some of that information we need is not in the most comprehensible form. So we might have to work on getting that into a very usable form for us. You know, we might, and that's why, like when I look into the job descriptions, you know what, for that to be helpful to us, we might want to redo some of that based upon what's here, and maybe go to the department heads and say, okay, we need this data about the jobs. So we can determine, you know, whether or not a central person is needed, or we might find out that there already is reporting structures, there's no one's using them. And maybe having them spelled out is all we need. And that goes to that.
We don't know what we don't know, right?
That, yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion to adjourn, and we'll decide on the next meeting once we have gone before the Board of Selectmen at their next meeting.
The ABCC.
The ABC. Thank you very much to all the viewers out there. I make a motion to adjourn this evening.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you
Charlie.
very much, thank you for coming.